Sam, the wasps, they found a habitat in your trunk. What happened?
Oh my God. My sister and my brother-in-law are here right now. And this morning we were getting like ready to go to brunch. I have two cars currently. I'm selling one. I'm selling my Subaru. And my brother-in-law went outside. He's like, hey, there's a wasp's nest in the trunk of the Subaru. I was like, excuse me? And you could see like where there's the line in the trunk so it can open. Like in that line was a tiny wasp's nest, and like they were just piling out of it. Ugh. So we went to brunch, and I was kind of quiet all brunch because all I could think about were these fucking wasps in the trunk of the Subaru.
Is the trunk closed off to the rest of the car?
Yes. Yeah. But I'm like in the middle of trying to sell that car. Like, can you imagine if next Tuesday I'm like, I have the day off of work and I finally put it on Craigslist and somebody comes over to see it and we open the trunk and just get fucking annihilated by wasps?
Damn.
Yeah. After brunch, I was like, I need to go get a wasp killer now and deal with this, or else I will not be able to focus on anything else for the rest of the day.
Coming soon from Vinegar Syndrome, wasps, trunk wasps.
So they're dead now. And my sister and brother-in-law went for a run, and they're like, we'll take the Subaru and get it a car wash. I was like, wow. So much.
Oh,
Thanks
that's so
much,
nice.
guys.
Problem averted. Nice work.
Yeah, no more wasps.
Yeah, if you want to buy a Subaru, DM us.
A 2015 Subaru Impreza. That was my grandma's.
Welcome to Physical Therapy, a movie podcast from friends who are obsessed with their physical media collections. We're here every week talking about movies, recommendations, announcements, and the latest and greatest in 4Ks and Blu-rays. My name is Kurt.
And I'm Sam.
And I'm Bobby.
We're also joined by our wonderful producer, Kimberly. Hi, Kim.
Hello, I am here.
Today, we are, at long last, diving into some new releases to 4K from the great director James Cameron.
Big Jim, baby.
Last month, we saw the 4K releases of Aliens, True Lies, and The Abyss. So we are going to be breaking down those movies a little bit later on. If you want to jump right to that, we'll put a timestamp in the description of this episode. But first, how are you guys' weeks? What did you watch?
I've had a pretty crazy week due to work. So I was honestly only able to get through Aliens and True Lies for the pod and 2 episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm. So I've had kind of an off week.
Have you finished the new season?
No, I like it fine. It's not my favorite. And so I'm not like, I don't feel super encouraged to like watch the next episode after every time. So I'm making my way. I'm about 7 episodes out of 10, I think.
We've got the finale still to watch.
Yeah, it's funny enough, but I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. I'll just go to bed instead of watching the next episode, honestly.
Yeah. Bobby, do you watch Curb?
I used to watch it a long time ago, but I didn't really pick it up when it was revived a handful of years ago. But I really enjoy it. I think it's hilarious.
How about you, Bobby? What'd you watch?
So continuing on my exploration of imprints titles, I purchased a big box set of 8 films, and it's called Collaborations, the films of Yimou Zhang, I think is how you pronounce his last name, and Gong Li, the Chinese superstar. And it's the first time I think a lot of these titles were released on Blu-ray, and they've never been released on Blu-ray in the US, but these 8 films that they made together are really excellent. And a lot of them I hadn't seen just because their earlier DVD releases were long out of print. But Raise the Red Lantern is like one of my favorite movies. And of course, he went on to do Hero and House of the Flying Daggers. And these are a lot of his films that span early in his career all the way till, a handful of years ago. But they're excellent movies. I had a lot of fun watching some of them.
That's cool. That's I really, House of Flying Daggers, when I first saw it, was like blew my mind apart.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
Where'd you pick that up, Bobby?
eBay.
Nice.
I got a new reissued copy that came out, I think, a year or 2 ago. But it's a really lovely box set. with 8 discs, 8 films, a handful of nice features and retrospective interviews.
I also used eBay to buy some Blu-rays this past week.
What'd you get?
I bought The Sixth Day starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, as well as End of Days starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I really want to rewatch Predator 2, and the Predator 2 solo Blu-ray is like out of print or very hard to find. And so I bought a 3-pack that's Predator 1, 2, and Predators for $5.95, and I feel great about it.
You're missing Alien versus Predator.
I think I'm going to skip those ones, but I'm feeling really good about it, mainly because I will not own Shane Black's The Predator. There's a 4K box set of the 4 Predator movies, and I refused to buy it because I will not have Shane Black's The Predator in my fucking house.
Wow, the integrity.
I don't have the shelf space for that, let's be honest.
I recently watched Single White Female for the first time.
Wow.
Jennifer Jason Leigh?
Yeah.
Bridget Fonda?
Yeah, which is about sort of a roommate from hell, a thriller from early 90s.
I think so.
Really fun. Highly recommend it. Just kind of a trashy thriller. It feels like it could have been a Brian De Palma movie or maybe a movie he passed on, but really fun performances and, just very entertaining. And then Kimberly and I were out of town visiting my mom, and while we were staying at her house, we watched 13 Going on 30.
Oh, dude, that movie rules.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's the female big.
Yeah. Shannon made me watch that at one time. It was a lot of fun.
It's fun.
I had way more fun with it than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mark Ruffalo, the great Jennifer Garner.
Judy Greer.
Judy Greer, yeah.
Yeah, Judy Greer is so great in it. It's an insane movie, though, I must say.
Where's my box set of Judy Greer titles?
Yes.
They would fit so well
God.
together, like Wedding Planner and 13 Going on 30.
And a
I like
million
that
other
she had
things.
this period in her career where she just played like the best friend of the main character.
Yeah, it's a good character.
Yeah.
Yeah, she always steals the show. She's always like on. She's the comic relief we all need.
The best friend we all need.
The best friend we all need.
Jennifer Garner's costumes in 13 Going on 30 are insane.
Wild. What a time.
Insane.
The Lisa Frank folders that she has at her office.
There's that great dance party too.
The
Yeah,
Thriller.
The
Thriller dance,
breakout
yeah.
dance with Andy Serkis, I think.
Oh my God,
Oh
Andy
my God.
Serkis. Like, what is his hair doing in this movie?
He's her boss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He has like
Incredible.
jet black hair.
it's so good.
Do you think that Peter Jackson saw 13 Going on 30 and he was like, that's Schmeagol. There he is.
I think it's after that, isn't it?
I think you're right.
While I was working, Kim also watched, so I sort of, passively watched Irish Wish, which is the new Lindsay Lohan movie on Netflix. Kim, you want to tell us what's it about?
Okay. It's about a assistant editor who works for a big novelist in, I guess, New York. There's like this opening party and she's in love with her boss, essentially. From there, it becomes, she follows him to Ireland because he has fallen in love with her best friend. So there's a wedding and she's just so upset that it's not her marrying him. And essentially she, in a very crazy scene, wishes to be marrying her boss, and the wish comes true. And from there on, it is one thing after another, but there's a love interest she meets on a bus who ends up being her true love, and
Oh my God. What?
wild.
This movie is like a Disney Channel original movie if it had a huge budget. Huge. Incredible locations in Ireland.
Yeah.
She's the main character. She's the one who does the wish. Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan produced this movie and is fully like back in this film.
What a fucking train wreck, dude.
It's so great.
Did you see the Christmas one? Grind, you got to see the Christmas one. What's that one called?
It's like a new movie?
Yeah, it came out last, maybe 2 Christmases ago, 2 holidays.
Falling for Christmas, which
Falling for
is
Christmas.
the most literal title in the world because she actually does fall.
She gets amnesia.
It's fantastic.
And this is a Netflix movie?
These are both Netflix, yeah. Where's this box set, Criterion? You know what I'm saying?
That's all I want.
Get the fuck out of here, man. No.
A true joy.
Well, I'm happy for you, Kim.
I just love her. Lindsay is iconic.
I want to point out that I got a lovely little postcard here from our good friend Bobby.
Oh, wow. Doesn't that feel good?
It's the best.
I'm glad it arrived.
What's on the cover?
Juneau, Alaska.
Ooh, yes.
I've never been.
Neither have I. Bobby, A, you have beautiful handwriting. And B, it sounds like you watched The American and enjoyed your time with it.
Oh, yes, I did. It was just a very thoughtful political spy thriller and George Clooney just plays, he's such a sturdy performer and character throughout his movies. And this was no exception. And it's really well filmed too. It has a really lovely color palette. Yeah, I loved it.
Did it make you want to sip espresso and build a sniper rifle?
Which I've done. So
again,
it was more me recognizing,
yourself,
the similarities between my life and his. So yeah,
it's like a true vibe movie in the sense of that you could turn all the sound off and just have it like on in the background, and it's very pleasant to just look in at, and kind of you can walk in and out of it, and it's still just beautiful to look at.
Yeah. So thank you for the recommendation. I'm taking them.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
Should we talk some announcements? I feel like there's been some good ones since last we did this.
Go ahead. I mean, there was definitely some stuff that I made a little list about that I'm excited to pick up.
I'm going to start with one that similar to Chinatown, was so sad I didn't wish for, because it was like, it would have come up sooner or later, but Kino is doing Brian De Palma's Snake Eyes later this year, which is Brian De Palma's follow-up to Mission Impossible, the first one with Tom Cruise. And it stars Nicolas Cage and is sort of almost like a real-time neo-noir thriller happening at a boxing fight in like Atlantic City. So almost the whole thing takes place inside of a stadium, and it has kind of a very similar, it's almost like the first sequence of Mission Impossible 1, if people remember that, like at the party where it's sort of bouncing between all these characters, and there's
which I think is the best part of the movie. I think that's like one of the most genius sequences in a Mission Impossible movie.
It's amazing. It's almost like that sequence stretched out to the full runtime of the movie. Probably not as good of a movie as Mission Impossible 1, but I have a real soft spot for Snake Eyes. And there's a lot of great colors in it, like the costumes, and, the location is very vibrant because it's like a boxing stadium. And I feel like if they do a good job with the transfer, it will be a very beautiful Blu-ray or 4K.
I'm excited to revisit it. Honestly, I haven't watched it since it probably first came out.
Did you ever see it, Bobby?
Never. I'll have to watch it.
Yeah.
I've seen the bulk of Brian De Palma's movies. That one, some of his 90s ones, slipped through the cracks.
The first 10 minutes of that movie is like you're fully on cocaine. Like, it's so jacked up. And Nicolas Cage is loving it.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend it. I mean, Kurt loves it. He showed it to me, and it's a ride, a wild ride.
There were some exciting Criterion announcements. I have never seen Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. I'm a huge fan of the soundtrack and have always wanted to see it, but it's never been on Blu-ray in America, and it's only a DVD, and I've been really kind of holding off because I assumed it would come out eventually.
It's really good. I don't love it like I love some of Peck and Paw's other movies, but it's Bob Dylan's music, and I mean, he's in it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some sequences that utilize his music so beautifully. They're some of the best sequences I think he's ever done, and, really represent this new wave of American filmmaking. I think it's really good. And there are two different versions I remember watching both, and they are different, and I don't remember which I preferred. So I'm excited to rewatch both of those.
Yeah, the 4K set is 4 discs. 2 are Blu-rays and 2 are 4K. So I think that they'll definitely have both cuts. And it's one of my favorite Dylan albums. Like, the score is so beautiful for that movie. And it's mostly instrumental, the album, but he's got at least 1 or 2, full-blown songs on it.
They use Knocking on Heaven's Door in the best sequence. It's a scene where a character has been killed, and it's long and it's sad and it's beautiful.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Another one they announced that I would like to do on the show is Risky Business.
Oh, yeah.
Early Tom Cruise. It's a movie I've seen, but I don't remember all that well.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to check it out. It's like like we've talked about it a couple of times, which is one of those movies I know through just culturally.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll be fun to like actually finally watch it.
Bobby, what other criterions were announced? Anything
Well, I'm really excited, and this happened sort of fortuitously in my deep dive with Gong Li's movies. They announced Farewell My Concubine, which won the Palme d'Or in 93 it tied with, I think, the piano. And it's been released on DVD by Miramax. And I do have the DVD, but it's been years since I've watched it. And I remember they re-released it in theaters after a very, long-awaited restoration. So I'm excited to rewatch it.
They're also doing a 4K upgrade of Jean-Pierre Melville's Les Samurai, which is one of my favorites. So that's exciting.
Alain Delon, I think is his name. He's so great. He's one of my favorite French actors. His movies are so darn sexy.
He's so beautiful.
He's so beautiful. He was the original Tom Ripley.
Oh,
one of Kim's favorites.
Yeah, Purple Noon is definitely my favorite. He's just the perfect one.
I have the Blu-ray of Les Samurai sitting in a shame pile right now as we speak.
What's your plan?
I will watch it someday.
You're not going to swap it
No.
for a 4K in your shame pile?
No, I don't think I can justify that.
Yeah. Bobby, we're getting Magic Mike, the first one, on 4K.
I saw that announced. That'll be great.
Maybe XXL will follow.
I'm hoping.
What else? Anything else that people saw?
Yeah. I want to highlight 2 movies out of Terror Vision, which is a smaller label. I think I have one release from them. They're putting out Satanic, spelled Satanik, from 1968. It is, I believe, a Spanish movie that looks really cool. I don't really know much about it other than I was really drawn to the cover art that they've put up. So that looks awesome, as well as these are both May releases for TerrorVision. There's a movie coming out called The Nail Gun Massacre that has the subtitle of It's Cheaper Than a Chainsaw, which really made me laugh.
How much cheaper is a nail gun than a chainsaw?
It can't really be that much cheaper, right?
I have no idea how much a chainsaw costs. TerrorVision, do you know much about that label? I'm not familiar with it.
I don't know it either.
I don't know it. I'm 90% sure that I have a title from them on my shelf. It was a blind buy that I ended up really liking, but I'm totally blanking on what it is at this point. And I should be clear, Satanic is a Spanish-Italian co-production. They seem to be putting out really kind of cool, small cult stuff, like really small stuff. I was looking at one of their other titles that was like clearly shot on VHS and looked pretty rough. But, they're another company probably like in the Vinegar Syndrome realm that's making sure these movies that would have otherwise been lost to time have a market of some kind.
James Cameron.
The man, the myth, the legend.
So as we mentioned in the intro, Aliens, The Abyss, and True Lies have all come out recently on 4K from Disney and Fox, and were greeted with quite a bit of controversy in the physical media community, I would say. Would you guys agree with that? Did you hear these rumblings?
Oh, they're mad. The people are mad.
They're very mad. But it was also like, kind of a botched rollout on Disney's side.
Totally.
There was rumors flying around that maybe they rolled it out the way they did because the reviews had been coming in about the new transfers on these 4Ks.
The rollout meaning like they were undersupplied?
Yes, meaning they were undersupplied and probably sent waves of movies out in ways that they normally wouldn't. It was hard to find these 3 after they all dropped on the same day. And didn't you say the Amoeba had like 4 copies of The Abyss, but neither of the other 2?
I think when I first went down there, either the day they dropped or just afterward, I think they only had Aliens, and then they had some True Lies like a few days later, and then eventually it seemed like they had Abyss and whatever.
And I pre-ordered these, but Aliens was the last to come in, and certain ones were available at different retailers, so I bought them from all different retailers, and they all came at radically different times.
Yeah, I ordered Aliens and True Lies off of Amazon, I don't know, a month before the release date, and they eventually got to me, but I was getting emails from Amazon that was saying they weren't going to ship till the end of May.
Yeah,
which is wild.
So that's why these movies came out 2 months ago, but here we are talking about them now. Maybe we just go in chronological order.
So
the aliens would be first. Yeah. I'll start by saying that I have always been partial to the original Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien. I had seen Aliens a couple times. It's not a movie I grew up with, that might have something to do with it.
When was the last time you had seen it before this watching?
I had just seen it at, I think on 70, at least 35, but I think it was a 70 blow up at the Egyptian in Los Angeles. And that was honestly kind of the first time I saw it or watched it where it really worked for me. I've always had a little bit of a hard time with like the macho-ness of the first half. Tonally, it's always just been kind of like, am I supposed to think these like Marines are cool? They're kind of annoying me. But when the shit goes off, it's amazing.
I think the thing that worked for me with what you're describing and the masculine performativity of it all at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's such a James Cameron style. Like all of his movies have this kind of pack of jocular, overconfident men. Like I feel like we've seen it kind of ripple throughout his movies. I don't think it's necessarily good. Like I think that's kind of where I think James Cameron is a little hammy, and I wish he were a bit more nuanced in some of those developments. But I just sort of was like, man, this feels like a James Cameron movie.
Without a doubt.
This movie as a little kid appealed to me a lot because I could watch it on TV. And it was so exciting and action packed and emotional because there was a little kid involved.
It's the only thing about the movie that feels 80s to me. Like there's something so modern about the way the movie looks. Like it does not look like an 80s movie in my opinion. It feels like it could have been made in the 90s, but the macho-ness is very 80s. So it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, you're right.
But don't you think that, like, I mean, I think you see this in a lot of James Cameron movies, as Bobby, you were saying, he you know, all of his characters are archetypes. They always are. And it's like, there's not a lot going, you don't get a lot of like character development in a lot of his movies. But I think the thing with Aliens, Kurt, that you're like touching on briefly is that I think we're supposed to see these guys as like, hey, this is American muscle, baby. And like, they're here to get the job done. Like, because, you know, people have talked about Aliens as a Vietnam War movie. And, you know, like big swinging dick American Marines come in and then absolutely get their asses handed to them. Mm-hmm. The way that like the Marines come in Avatar and absolutely get their asses handed to them. Like I think he kind of looks at the military industrial complex and just smirks at it. So he always writes these characters that are silly and over the top and think the world of themselves and then who absolutely have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that's fair. For sure.
I always love the knife sequence, though, when
with Bishop,
Bill Paxton's hand is out.
Yeah.
And
Bill Paxton in Aliens is next fucking level.
It's like so over the top and amazing. Yeah, he's so funny. Aliens, you know, if you're not familiar with Aliens, it's the sequel to the original film Alien that Ridley Scott did, which was very much like a horror movie, a slasher movie, basically on a spaceship, a monster movie. This one, you know, the famous kind of story is that James Cameron pitched it to the studio by writing Alien on a whiteboard, then putting an S after it, and then turning the S into a $sign.
Fucking genius.
And that was it. And this one is an action movie. You know, in the first one, there's really only like one xenomorph after them, and this one there's dozens and dozens. Like, so there's tons of action and grotesque aliens exploding and people getting ripped apart, and it's really, really exciting and entertaining and just like action packed compared to the first one, which is just, you know, a different thing.
In talking about Cameron, he did the same thing with his Terminator movies, right? Like the first one is kind of a quiet one machine after Sarah Connor. It's filmed much more like it feels much more like a horror movie. It looks much more like a horror movie. And then you have Terminator 2, which just explosive scene after explosive scene. I mean, some of the best action, probably for my money, the best action movie ever made.
I wouldn't disagree. So briefly, I picked up that disc, the T2 disc, because
the 4K?
The 4K. Because I had always heard... Oh, there you go, Bobby.
Oh, nice, Bobby.
Whoa, yours has a slip? When did you get that?
I got it right when it came out.
Oh, well, there you go. Beautiful. But I had heard how bad the transfer was on T2 long before the controversies came up about these new movies. And so I had avoided it. We'll get into the visual, presentation of the new ones, but I decided to give it a try. I wanted to see how it looked. And I didn't sit down and watch the whole thing, but this morning I put on a scene from Terminator 2, and I think that it's visually kind of in a similar area as the new ones. We'll talk about it. Point being, Terminator 2, like, I was like, I just want to see what some shots look like, and then like cut to like 10 minutes later, I'm just like watching the movie because it's just the best. First R-rated movie I ever saw, Terminator 2.
Hell yeah.
Matt Peterson's second grade birthday party.
Matt Peterson. What a guy.
What a guy.
This was a favorite when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was introduced to a whole new sphere of entertainment.
We had a VHS 2-pack that was Terminator 1 and 2 housed in the same case.
How was your experience with Aliens? Did you guys both check it out?
Okay, so I watched the Blu-ray and I realized that I hadn't watched the theatrical cut of Aliens in a very long time. There's a director's cut, which I believe is like 15 minutes longer, which is honestly just better. It's a better movie. And I love Aliens. I am in this is not a shot at Alien, but I prefer Aliens to Alien.
Many people do.
It's whatever you want to go for, right? Like it's more fun. It's like more of a party movie to watch. I think it's easier to throw a scene of aliens on and like, okay, cool. I watched the first assault on the planet, and an Alien is great, but it's just a different movie. But so I hadn't watched the theatrical cut of Aliens in a very long time. And when I was watching it here, I was thinking, like, what? This feels different. This feels like I remember there being extra scenes, and I realized I was watching the theatrical cut, which is fine. I prefer the directors. I mean, should we talk about the visuals?
Sure.
Okay, so one of the things about these new discs, the three of them, is that a form of AI technology was brought in to digitally enhance and kind of clean up the movie. This is a thing that has been talked about on the internet for like a long time at this point. I was going into this movie like not excited to watch it at all because of these new transfers. And I put it on, and honestly, a lot of it looks really, really good. There are a couple scenes where skin tones look a little weird or kind of like overly digitally clean. But on my 65-inch TV, it looked pretty great. I guess there was nothing too distracting that made me want to turn the movie off.
Bobby, I want to hear what you think, but essentially what they did is, like, we've talked about on this show, I think even in the first episode, at least one of my favorite parts about these really high resolution transfers onto discs is the preservation of kind of the original film experience, the texture of film, the grain of film. You can preserve that in a very organic way on these formats, Blu-ray and 4K especially. And so these are examples of sort of intentionally running in the opposite direction and trying to make mid-80s, early 90s films shot on film appear more modern. So they've removed things like film grain, and they've smoothed things out like skin tones and skin textures to give it more of an appearance as if it was shot on a modern digital camera, like an Alexa or something like that. So it's sort of a complicated issue because it's like, it feels unnatural in a lot of ways, but it also looks good for the most part. Like, some of it doesn't. Some of this, especially the skin, that's really when it became distracting for me, especially in True Lies. But, overall the experience is like visually, for the most part, vibrant, and colors are amazing. The detail's amazing. I had never seen any of these movies look like this. Bobby, what did you think?
I only saw the Blu-rays of these new releases, and to my understanding, it's the same.
Yes.
The film itself hasn't been restored. It's just the transfer to 4K, correct? So what I'm seeing, or what I saw, was presumably what was put on Blu-ray before, correct?
No, you saw, I believe that the Blu-ray discs are just 1080 versions of the 4Ks. So it's the same quote unquote restoration, but with less resolution than the 4K discs, which I've actually heard are a little more forgiving of these issues.
Yeah, that was my understanding. I mean, I wasn't watching them in like optimal viewing conditions, but I didn't notice a difference really prior to other re-releases I've seen.
Did you guys watch all three? Abyss, True Lies, and Aliens?
I skipped the Abyss because I just happened to see it in theaters.
Which I assume is probably the same restoration that they've now put on discs.
I think so. They billed it as a new 4K restoration.
I watched all three.
Let's talk about The Abyss. That comes next.
Sure.
I grew up with The Abyss on VHS. It's a movie that my dad loved, and we would watch, sort of regularly, but that's the last time I'd seen it. I hadn't seen any other, physical media format version of it. And so my memory of it was pretty hazy. The Abyss is essentially about like an underwater oil rigging crew who are sent on kind of a rescue mission to a submarine that has sunk to the bottom of the ocean because they're like the first, they can get there the fastest. But it's also essentially like an underwater extraterrestrial science fiction film. It stars Ed Harris and Elizabeth, what's her name?
No, Mary Elizabeth Antonio
From Scarface.
The Color of Money.
Oh yeah, Color of Money.
Also in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. She apparently also went to high school with my mother.
Oh,
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a movie where I was less excited by the screenplay on this time through. I think it's sort of a little messy. It kind of feels like two movies slammed together.
Mm-hmm.
One is kind of like a thriller about nuclear missiles in a sunken submarine, and the other is about extraterrestrial life. And I didn't feel like they came together all that cleanly, but this movie was filmed underwater, straight up in a giant tank that was originally like a nuclear reactor, I think in like South Carolina. This tank is like 200 feet wide. I don't know how deep, but deep. And they built sets in this tank and then filled it up. And then on top of the tank are like thousands and thousands of these little black beads that float and kept out the sunlight.
Oh, yeah, I read about this. Yeah.
They had to do that instead of a tarp in case anybody needed to come up for air, because you can just stick your head through these little, micro beads. But they essentially created like a pitch black pool and built a film set in it and lit it and shot underwater with the actors. And there's like an hour-long documentary about the making of the film that's from the DVD and is like in standard def, but it's available on the bonus disc of this new release that I think is honestly like worth the purchase. Like it's I liked it better than The Abyss.
Sure.
It's a companion piece to the movie, because you watch the movie and you're like, how the fuck are they doing this? Like, where are they? How are they doing that? Because the actors are so clearly the divers, like they have these beautiful helmets with light in them, and it's just like, it's not fake.
Yeah. I mean, it was also made at a time where like the technology wasn't there. You're either shooting underwater or you're not.
Or you're like, using old school techniques of smoke and slow motion and whatever, dry for wet. It was really fun to rewatch this movie, and it's really something. Like in this transfer, the underwater stuff is so beautiful in 4K and HDR. And if you're a fan of this movie, I recommend it 1,000%. What did you guys think?
I hadn't seen it, so seeing it on the big screen was pretty awesome. And I knew a lot of the water stuff. Yeah, I think Ed Harris almost died during the making of it, and he like ended up punching James Cameron in the face after a take or something.
That's the rumor. They don't talk about that on the documentary.
Dang, yeah, I was gonna say that'd be awesome. It was cool to see on the big screen, but I thought overall this movie was pretty whack. Like the end, I was just like, oh, cool, okay.
Which version did you see? Because these two versions, the theatrical and the special edition, are radically different, I think.
Oh, really?
Okay, so they showed the special edition at the Hollywood when I saw it.
Okay, because I was going to ask if you saw, the big ending.
Kim and I watched the theatrical cut.
Then we won't spoil it. You should. I would.
It felt like it had a big ending, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, like I didn't buy this one because I don't see myself grabbing The Abyss off the shelf and just tossing it on. I think, in all honesty, that it's his worst movie. I mean, what does that really mean when it's a guy who just makes like massive movies every time he makes one? It didn't work for me all that well. Bobby, did you grow up with it?
I'm not a huge fan of the Avatar movies. I think The Abyss is also a weaker one. That being said, I think it's so ambitious and so interesting and epic in the way James Cameron tells stories, rather. It has this love story, this good evil conflict. I think there's like those real sucker punch, emotionally charged, almost melodramatic elements to it that I think make it a really fun movie, in the same way that Aliens is more fun than Alien. And
I mean, again, a bunch of Marines who are just like fucking knuckleheads the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is like this is familiar territory, and there's something really pleasurable about it. And this movie was also foundational to my budding physical media obsession, because I remember Fox released a great 2-disc set, and it was kind of the first real like...
Was it the DVD that had like the gold trim?
And it was a silver case, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It had a silver jewel case.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was like it was thicker, right?
Yep.
Like there were like 2 doors to open.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was like, it's such a relic of, the early
I know.
DVD times. But the second disc, to Kurt's point, the second disc was just packed with all of this really fun behind the scenes stuff that, as a kid and a collector and someone really interested in movie making, I thought the whole set was gold. And so for me, I almost can't separate the movie from my deep dive into the making of it and James Cameron's process. And, of course, it's because it's produced by James Cameron, it obviously has that, profiling bent. But I was so pleased to see, because the early Blu-ray didn't have any, of this, the real meat of this release. So I'm happy that they were able to include it on this one.
Did you notice, Bobby, that like on the bonus disc of this one, it's essentially like the old DVD parts of the special features, at least on this new disc, are like the old DVD preserved. Like you can, one of the special features is like you're like tapping through like standard definition, like facts, like the way you would have.
And then you have to click when it highlights, you can sometimes see like a featurette from 89 or whatever, or the trailer or something. There was a real fun... It was when DVD... Remember how fun those DVD menus were? I remember this menu too, You like go underwater and you tour around the barracks.
Are you saying that they had like a feature on the DVD that was like pop-up video for the Abyss? Like it would like facts would pop up while you watched it?
No, it's like it's basically just like a huge slideshow of facts, and then like behind the scenes photos or like videos that you're like manually moving one by one through. And you can do that on the Blu-ray that comes with this new one. It's like a special feature is essentially like accessing the old school DVD.
Cool.
It's really nice. And Aliens has it too, where you like have to scroll through production notes and, grab the features that are peppered throughout. But going back to Aliens real quick, I was happy to see that they pulled a lot of the bonus features that were tied to the anthology or quadrilogy releases of the Alien franchise. And so a lot of the subsequent single title releases haven't had any of the bonus features on it, because they were all produced for another disc, essentially. So the fact that they took the time to extract the ones that were specific to Aliens and curate them in such a way on this release was really great to see. And I wish they would do it with the other Alien movies, for that matter.
It's always tricky when it's like part 7, but it's like only on like the Kubrick ones.
So The Abyss, I had seen a few times growing up. My dad had it on Laserdisc.
It's a dad movie.
It's a dad movie. Yeah, I think because the sheer technology and the absolute mania in making this movie. Like, it is to me part 1 of Titanic.
Yes.
Titanic would not exist without The Abyss. Like, no one has that confidence like him with water,
or that obsession, really.
It's really something to behold. Yeah, so it was really fun to see it again, but I understand why people don't find it an accessible film of his. Ed Harris is incredible, huge fan of him, and I just was so enjoying his like radical behavior to his ex-wife. It felt like he was playing James Cameron.
And Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio was definitely Catherine
Bigelow.
That was
I just couldn't believe how many people hate this woman. Like, they all like talked so much shit on her, and when she steps out of like the helicopter, they're like, oh, the bitch is here. Like, it's just so over the top woman hating. There's a lot of that, and I just couldn't figure out why, because she's like a really intelligent, wonderful person. I thought the creature designs weren't special enough. I really understood what he was trying to do, but it doesn't quite get there. It would have been a more successful movie if it was just an action movie.
Yeah, I would like to see that version of it, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed.
True Lies.
Yeah, man. This had been hard to find for a long time.
I believe there was like a French Blu-ray that was region free. I know Videotech had it for a while. I was always circling that, but hard to find.
Kurt and I talked about it for a second, Bobby. So did you rewatch it?
I did. It was the one I watched the least as a kid. I remember seeing it on TV because it was rated R for language or whatever. And so I think I saw it and then rewatched it maybe on DVD later. And then this was my first time revisiting it. And it's great. I mean, it's like, I think the marriage angle is interesting. I don't really find there to be a ton of chemistry between the two of them, but they're both really good at the roles. So it worked for me, I guess. It's funny and light and an action movie. So, I always enjoyed watching it. I mean, like the times I had seen it before, I liked it.
And kind of the same thing, Bobby. Like I remember seeing this movie as a kid. It was probably rented at my house at one point, but it was also just on USA Network all the time.
Yeah.
There was a Sega Genesis game based on True Lies, and we would always rent that.
I remember.
Wow.
Because you could do a really cool battle roll in it. I just remember that.
Hell yeah.
And we would play that game a lot, and kind of culturally we knew the movie, but I hadn't seen it from like start to finish in a long time.
Yeah, we had this on VHS growing up, but I had forgotten how just straight up comedy this is. Like it really is light. True Lies is a 1994 Arnold Schwarzenegger film where he plays a spy whose wife and daughter think he's like a salesman. Yeah. And of course discover the truth. It was very fun to revisit it. I think that, the climax of this movie, like the third act, is just a banger. Like, unbelievable stuff.
It's so good.
There's a sequence in the Florida Keys with like a car chase across this like 3-mile bridge or something, like going over the water with like a Harrier jet and missiles, and the bridge is exploding and the cars are like jumping and falling into the thing. And it's just, there's a sequence where Arnold is attempting to rescue someone from like the sky, the sunroof of a limousine. And he's like hanging upside down from a helicopter, and this limousine is like barreling its way toward like a break in the bridge. I mean, top notch 90s stuff.
That is the scene that I remembered from the movie, and I didn't remember that it was in the third act. So there was kind of I'm waiting for the bridge scene through the first 2 acts of the movie. But once you get there, it's incredible. I will say though that the movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and there's at least 10 to 15 minutes you can cut out.
Most of them are Tom Arnold lines.
Yeah, but like the middle of the movie gets a little boring, honestly.
Yeah.
There's slightly like too much marriage stuff.
Yeah, which is the plot, but that's not necessarily the spectacle or what drives, I think, the movie's appeal.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, this one, I would say, suffers the most from these restoration, quote unquote. The skin on people's faces just look very strange, very polished.
And maybe it's because a lot of this movie takes place during the day, like in daylight, and a lot of Aliens is in the dark, in like dimly lit areas.
Same with Abyss.
It looks weird. It like almost looks like a video game. It was really distracting to my eye. I noticed those scenes a lot more in this one than I did Aliens.
But some of the action sequences are really great in this upgrade, especially because of the daylight. Like the bridge stuff is in the daylight with the blue water, and like it's just the vibrancy of all of it is really great.
The trade-off is that some of the movie looks like a bummer.
I think it's just kind of the overall takeaway from these new ones is like happy to have them, not quite perfect. Probably the best we're going to get.
Yeah, I don't see another company doing new 4K transfers of these movies at this point.
I mean, they're his transfers, so
yeah. Like it's a little George Lucas-y, like going back into fuck with stuff, which I don't love, but I guess what are you gonna do?
I thought of that a lot. Thank God that George Lucas set the bar so low that these don't feel that bad.
What do we think of these new covers?
They're terrible.
They're fucking awful, dude.
It's especially pissed me off with The Abyss because That is like just one of the great posters.
One of the great posters.
It's just like, make it the poster. Just make the cover the poster. Unless you're Criterion and you're hiring somebody or Arrow, like, to make an original piece of artwork, like, don't just fucking Photoshop
exactly.
Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Some fucking intern dork is just sitting there, like, Photoshopping a bunch of heads together. It looks awful, man.
I think this is a true byproduct of Disney's acquisition of Fox, because you look at how they have re-released all the Disney movies. They're all these like glossy kind of re-updated artistic renderings of the movie to appeal to whatever audience they're trying to capture. So this movie, you know, you look at it and I don't think it really captures the essence of, I don't know. It just looks weird, but it fits James Cameron's bombastic approach to these reissues, and also maybe even the issues with the 4K transfers is they all look kind of glossy. Even like the Aliens one, I was looking at the back, the image of the monster against Ripley in her little machine thing. And it took a second for me to realize that it wasn't a still from the movie, that it was a weird kind of AI. It looks like AI art, to be honest.
Probably is.
I'm making this up, but I wouldn't be surprised if the same program that they used to, like, you know, AI enhance some of the movie, they were also just like, by the way, create new cover art for us.
Totally.
Well, you know what it reminds me of is like the Netflix thumbnails, and I'm sure other streaming services, but
those are totally disrespectful.
Yeah, they have to like try to present it to you as if it's not from 1989 or whatever. And I think even Netflix, I've heard at one point that they have different thumbnails for movies that like speak to people's specific algorithms.
Oh yeah, they're and they change all the time.
Well, I wish these spoke to my algorithm and were the original posters, but whatever.
I do respect and applaud Paramount's reissuing of Titanic, because it is the first physical media after the 2 VHS set to feature the original poster image.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that one's good. That one's good for sure.
Wasn't the last release of Titanic on Blu-ray like a massive box set?
Yes, it was a really great upgrade. It was the first time it was released on Blu-ray, I believe.
But it was like a huge box, right?
Doesn't the new one have a huge box? Like an option?
Oh, maybe. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
There is like an actual collector set with like prints.
I saw that at Amoeba. It's gigantic. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like it has too much in it. I don't know how to store it.
Yeah. Where would that go?
Yeah. It's interesting. And also the special, not to deviate too much from, you know, the current releases we're talking about, but the special features are almost the exact same as the original, but slightly different. It's very strange.
Were they produced for the disc? Let's talk about Titanic. I mean, it's not that old. That movie, or that release, came out in November maybe.
Oh, it's last year? It's that new?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
It's new. And I have it, Bobby, but I haven't watched it. I did see the theatrical re-release in 3D, which is presumably the same quote unquote transfer as that disc, not in 3D obviously, but have you watched that Blu-ray yet?
Well, there is no Blu-ray included of the movie.
Oh, it's just a 4K.
It's just the Blu-ray of the special features. So it's really useless for me to have this without any of the other versions.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was able to watch the special features or kind of compare and contrast them from the earlier version.
Okay.
Which one did you like visiting the most? Like out of the three new discs, which one did you have the most fun watching?
The Abyss, just because it had been the longest period of time since watching it, and the Aliens Blu-ray was included in the box sets I've gotten over the years, so I've been able to rewatch it more frequently.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Kurt?
Yeah, I think True Lies I had the most fun with. I completely agree. Bobby, Aliens was like, I'm happy to have the upgrade, but something I've had on Blu-ray already. And The Abyss was a little trickier because like the movie itself, honestly, I remembered liking more than I did this time through. But when I had seen it last time, like I don't think I was even really into filmmaking yet. And I didn't know what a production it was. So as a movie, True Lies, but as like a package of supplementals and stuff, I think The Abyss.
Cool.
And I think visually, The Abyss, the footage of them underwater with the helmets, with the lights inside of them and stuff, like I think visually that stuff looks the best in 4K.
Even though these movies are dated, they look fucking cool. The underwater base that they basically have in the abyss is awesome. Michael Biehn all sweaty and wet going down these tight little corridors in the abyss. Those are awesome scenes.
Handlebar mustache.
Oh my God, it's so good.
One thing I had forgotten was Bill Paxton from True Lies.
Oh my, I was just going to say.
I like totally didn't remember him in it. So Schwarzenegger is a real life spy, and then his
Pretending
wife,
to be a salesman.
Pretending to be a salesman, exactly. And his wife, Jamie Lee Curtis, gets sort of involved with Bill Paxton, who is a salesman pretending to be a spy in order to pick up women. And just like the sleaziest sleazeball you've ever seen. And he's so funny in it.
What's that line when they're on top of the dam? When he's like, I got a tiny dick, man.
Yeah. The late, great Bill Paxton.
He pops up in a lot of Cameron movies, and it is always fun to see him.
So many.
But like always kind of a dialed up to 11 performance that is just awesome. I guess it's fairly reined in Titanic, but it's really good.
That earring in his ear is really something.
Oh yeah, he does have an earring.
Also, I do want to mention the Titanic special features these are not new or exclusive to this latest. The alternate ending or extended ending. Have you all seen it?
No.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Make that your homework.
Okay.
It is so good.
The extended ending to Titanic.
Yep. It's on the disc.
Okay.
It's on both Blu-ray discs.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
I'm in.
All of our listeners need to watch the extended ending to Titanic.
I guess I'm buying fucking Titanic on 4K this week. All right.
There you go.
Do you not have the Blu-ray?
No, it was like one of those ones that I kind of I was like, no, fuck Titanic. Titanic's dumb. And then I rewatched it in theaters and I was like, there's no reason to think Titanic is dumb.
Yeah, so you should own it. But I think you can watch it on YouTube.
Come on. I'm not going to do that. I'll just buy it. I got disposable income. I'm rich.
It is time to look into the crystal ball of physical media, into the future, and place wishes for titles on formats that they do not exist on yet.
I wish for a 4K copy of Killers of the Flower Moon, preferably from Criterion.
I wish for Paul Mazursky's Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice on DVD, Blu-ray, Criterion.
I wish for Michael Bay's The Rock in 4K. Nice.
So Killers of the Flower Moon was actually what I was going to say.
Was
Whoa.
it really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
What a symbiotic podcast.
Look at us go. Look at us go.
So I had to quickly pivot. I was like,
sorry, Bobby.
No, it's great. This is a fun mental exercise. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, 1969. Have y'all seen it?
This is one of those movies I've never seen, but my stepdad talks about
That's
all the
hilarious.
time.
Wait, Los?
Really?
Oh, that's interesting.
Los just
It's
talks
a
about
countercultural.
Yeah.
Swinging
Well,
Los?
It's just like, he'll just
Amazing.
say these names all the time.
It's a great movie. And there was a Columbia Sony DVD that came out a long time ago. Sure, it's out of print.
Was there a Twilight Time, Bobby, too, on Blu-ray?
I think there was a Twilight Time. Yes,
Okay.
there was.
That company's dead, right?
Yes,
It is. It was good.
It was.
it was. But I've seen it pop up on the Criterion channel from time to
Oh,
time.
I know.
okay.
I
On
feel
the
like
streaming
it's
service.
in the queue for a release.
Yeah. It's got to be.
Because they've done other Paul Mazursky's. They've done other Columbia movies that came out around the same time. They did Shampoo
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's a really funny, poignant romantic comedy, and it's about two different couples who are navigating the turbulent times of 60s free love and consider switching partners.
But is it like a zany comedy?
It plays like a comedy of manners or a high comedy,
Okay.
in that it's sort of satirical, or it's looking at this hippie sexual revolution culture. And these characters are very, like, it's not slapsticky. It's definitely a social comedy.
Okay.
Because, it looks like the movie opens with Natalie Wood and Robert Culp, a couple at like a retreat in California in the mountains or something. And everyone is like, they're doing different breathing exercises and meditation. And, they come back from this experience and they're like, wow, we should think about opening up our marriage. And they have these two friends, Elliot Gould and Diane Cannon, who are hilarious. They introduce this idea to, and the two of them are totally pulverized. And so it's basically this lovely kind of examination of marriage, and it culminates in them going on a vacation together and like considering their options.
Fun.
Ooh, I got to see this.
And it has one of the greatest uses of the song "What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love," and Better Than My Best Friend's Wedding, which is also...
Oh, yeah, that's how I know it, which is perfect.
Me too. But then I saw this and I was like, this is so... There's something almost like transcendent about the movie too.
I want to see this, Bobby. I want to see this.
Yeah, we will, for sure.
Sounds awesome.
Go ahead, Sam. Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, where is it? Who has the rights?
We got some bad news this week. I read an article that just Apple has absolutely no plans for any type of physical release for Killers of the Flower Moon.
What?
So does Paramount not own the rights?
I thought they did. Don't they have distribution rights? There is a 4K of it in it's like German or something, but it's region B locked. Did you know that?
Oh, well, I guess I didn't. I can get that because I have a region free player, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's like the only 4K region B locked disc I've ever heard of.
We talked about this at one point. Just give me the criteria. They did The Irishman. Like, these are...
But they've done Apple movies. They did wasn't the Todd Haynes Velvet Underground documentary an Apple original?
I'm at the point where it's like, these are big, dense movies. I want to be able to sit with them and take my time with them. And I don't have Apple TV Plus, and I'm not going to fucking sign up for it. And I just would like to own that movie, please. I'm saying please. But Kurt, I was just thinking about earlier this morning, actually, while I was getting ready to record this podcast, about how I was like, ooh, maybe I should find a used copy of Criterion's The Rock on DVD.
You should.
Because, I mean, I have it on Blu-ray, but what a fun collector's item.
Similar box to The Abyss.
Yes, you're right. That big, thick package.
The Rock is 1996, I believe. It is directed by Michael Bay and stars Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery, and Ed Harris. It's about a hostage situation on Alcatraz, the defunct maximum security prison island in San Francisco. Ed Harris is a general who turns essentially with a bunch of other Marines and kind of commandeers these poisonous gas-filled rockets and takes a bunch of people on a tour of Alcatraz hostage and holds the city of San Francisco basically for ransom. And Nicolas Cage is a chemical weapons expert who has never been in combat whatsoever, who is brought in by the FBI to sort of help handle this situation. And in order to covertly get into Alcatraz, to break into it, not out of it, they pull Sean Connery out of prison, who is the only person to have ever broken out of Alcatraz.
Who's also just playing James Bond, basically.
Yeah, there's like some fun theories that his character is just like what would have happened to James Bond if you checked in with him when Sean Connery was in his 60s. And this is just like one of the... It's my second favorite 90s action movie behind Speed.
Oh, hell yeah. It's probably Michael Bay's best movie.
I would say so.
I mean, it's either this or Ambulance. I'm just kidding.
Some of The Rock has aged better than other, parts of it, but for the most part, it really holds up and just visually amazing. It would be really great in 4K.
I've never seen it.
Whoa, Bobby, really?
Yeah. No, never.
Do you like any Michael Bay movies? Do you have any relationship with him?
I remember enjoying Armageddon.
Mm-hmm.
That hit a sweet spot. Again, PG-13, not rated R. So I think at the time that those movies could have appealed to me, the ones that weren't PG-13 were inaccessible.
Sure.
I was so obsessed with The Rock in 1996 when it came out, and I was not allowed to see it because it's very much rated R. Just action or violence and language. I shouldn't say just, but in my house for some reason those were more allowed than sex. Yeah.
No, it was the sex and nudity that was the bad stuff.
There's a little bit of sex in The Rock, but I don't think there's any nudity. Anyways, my parents wouldn't let me see it, but by the time it was on cable with commercials where it was edited, we taped it and I was able to see it that way. And I loved it so much that I basically designed, illustrated, made my own case for our taped copy of The Rock. So I drew, Alcatraz and airplanes and missiles, and it had a spine.
Oh,
it's so funny.
That's
I did
awesome.
that with the Aliens.
There you go.
And Terminator 2. Yeah.
For Christmas one year, it was in a Nordstrom box, so I wouldn't guess what it was. I opened it up, and in the Nordstrom box were VHS copies of U-571, The Rock, and there's a third movie that I'm totally blanking on now, but in that same realm of kind of action war-like movies, and just being giddy. I also was obsessed with The Rock.
Jackpot.
Hell yeah, man. What a Christmas.
Okay, that is it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Patrick Laban for our music, Kimberly for producing. You can check us out on Instagram at PTMoviePod. You can also find us on the internet at PTMoviePod.com. Please leave us a review and a rating. We would so appreciate it. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
Game over, man. Game over.